Hello, welcome to another Genshin Impact video. My name's Hydrosam and I'm a Mona main Genshin Impact streamer. I stream at Facebook Gaming where we have over 2,000 followers. So if you're interested in a Mona main stream, definitely check me out. I promise you, I give you daily content on Mona and we just have so much fun there with this character, especially if you're a fan of Mona. So the purpose of this video is for me to explain Mona's burst and also show you every type of variation of Mona's burst that you can use for your team. Whether you're just using her by herself or for a Vaporize setup. And there's different types of Vaporize setups that you can use for your team depending on what characters you have. So the main thing I want you to get out of this video is you picking what Vaporize setup you want for your team, whether it be a basic one or a really complicated one to show off those flashy numbers. I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you so much and let the video play. Hello, welcome. My name's Hydrosam. I'm a Mona main Genshin Impact streamer and I'm gonna explain to you really quickly the elemental burst of Mona. If we look at her talent, you can just take a quick read if you want, but basically the gist is she applies it, she makes people wet, doesn't do any damage when she makes them wet, and then once the bubble explodes, it does whatever percent damage it says here. On level 8, 708 damage. If you do not pop it, it'll pop by itself in 8 seconds and it will apply that damage as well. Right, and then of course after it gets popped for 5 seconds, they will receive an extra 56% damage bonus from whoever is hitting them. What does that mean? So basically, like I just said, when she casts the burst onto her enemies, she makes them wet and she makes them immobile if they are weak characters, and if they're big characters, well then they can still move. Since the first part of the burst is not applying damage, when you pop it, that's where the damage is coming from. And this is the part that I need you to remember for later on in the video. That's pretty much the gist of how the burst works. So now let me show you a live demonstration of the ultimate in action. So if we go to this group of hilichurls, we're gonna be in the middle of them, we're gonna apply it, and see how they all got the wet element on top of them? So now, each single hilichurl, each of them have a chance for your explosion damage to land as a critical hit. And that's the number that we're gonna base off of for the rest of the video, the critical hit. Because of course, that's all you care about. So for us, 47% chance should happen half the time. But all we did right now was just trap them in a bubble and make them wet. And when we pop the bubble, that's when we're gonna get the explosion damage. Critical hit, non-critical hit, critical hit, critical hit. 44,000. And this is with no damage boost, no pyro element, just raw damage. And of course, if they would have survived, then for 5 seconds, they would have taken an extra 56% damage bonus from whoever. Now I'm going to show you a simple setup with just a pyro character on your team, causing a Vaporize with Mona's burst. So the first step is, you got to make sure that they have the pyro element applied on top of them. We're going to use Amber's burst, make sure we have the pyro character, the pyro element, and then now, so what happened now is, we applied wet, which now takes off the pyro element, which causes the Vaporize. And the bubble has to be popped by a pyro character. And by a pyro character, I mean a pyro attack. And you can't just pop it right away because you gotta wait about 2 seconds for the internal cooldown of the game. What that means is, since we just caused a Vaporize by applying wet with Mona's burst, there's a time limit, 2 seconds, where you can apply another Vaporize, because that's just the way the game works. Usually after I apply my Mona's burst, I usually count in my head 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then I do the attack. And that's usually how I time it in my head. And then that's just the muscle memory I have now. But for all you tryhards, you're like, oh, Hydrosam, you're not being optimal. You should do it 0.25 seconds earlier in order to maximize your time. Well, you know what? I'd rather be safe than sorry, so whatever. If you notice, right before we went into the character menu, the grass was burning underneath the little Anemo mage or whatever he's called, which means he got the pyro element again applied on him. Very interesting fact is that if that happens, you don't actually have to pop their bubble with a pyro attack. The grass is actually doing the work, so when the bubble pops by itself, after the 8 seconds, it will apply the Vaporize. But the hilichurl on the right, we do have to charge up a Amber's arrow in order to pop that bubble to cause a Vaporize. If we do it right, we should see over 100,000 damage if we got a critical hit. Once again, it's all based on the fact that if we landed a critical hit based off of that 44,000 that we kept in mind earlier. If I switch to Amber, not a critical hit. And let's see if this guy's critical hit. Nope.
You got me.
Oh. Embarrassing. But both of them did not land a critical hit after getting cucked over literally 6 times by that 53% chance of not being a critical hit. Let's see if we can actually get one. let's just put them on fire with Amber's arrows. Set them on fire one at a time. And then we apply Mona's burst. Couple seconds cooldown. By the time we charge this, critical hit maybe. Oh, if it's a critical hit, yep, that should happen. And if we don't pop it, nothing happens. There it is. And that is a simple setup with just one pyro character. Now let's take a look if you had more options other than Amber. If you had Bennette, for example, the special thing about Bennette you probably already know is that he has access to Fantastic Voyage. One thing about Fantastic Voyage that you need to know is that the boost that he gives you from his ultimate is only based off his base attack. So what that means is this number right here, 679. And you know where that number comes from? That number comes from his base attack as a character plus whatever weapon you're using on him. So if you're literally trying to get attack percent or attack boost from your artifacts, you are literally scamming yourself. Because the only thing the artifacts will help you is, of course, if he's going to be your DPS, or what actually helps you is his healing. Because his healing is based off his max HP. So if you have artifacts like mine that go off his HP, healing bonus, HP, then that's going to contribute to that. But not towards the attack boost. The attack boost only once again, the attack boost only comes from his weapon and his base attack as a character. And in total, you get this number right here, 679. So now that we have access to Bennette's burst, it's going to be way easier to apply Vaporize. So one thing to note is right now my Mona has an attack of 2042. And then with Bennette's ultimate burst, we're going to see how much it's going to spike up. So first step is to go to Bennette,
Adventure time.
apply the Pyro element, and then do Mona's ultimate burst. And if you notice, my attack went up by a lot. Like 900. So one thing you gotta note real quick is, of course, you gotta wait for the 2 seconds for the IC cooldown, or the internal cooldown. And this attack buff, once you switch off of Mona, lingers for about a second or two. What that means is after you switch to Bennette, you have to immediately do a Pyro attack, because if you don't, you're gonna lose the attack boost. And remember, the burst damage comes from the explosion, not the actual cast itself. So when it explodes, Mona still has to have that attack boost applied on her. So since we are already a couple seconds, let's just switch to Bennette and then do it, and you have a critical hit of 191,000. That is a super low maintenance setup, which is one Pyro character and Bennette on your team that you have access to, whether it be Spiral Abyss, a domain, or even here in open world. So now what's another step above this is when you switch your party, maybe you have Bennette here and you can switch to Amber.
At the ready.
Now when you have 2 Pyro elements, your team gets an overall increase in attack by 25%. So earlier we had 2042 with Mona, and now if you look at Mona's stats, now we have 2282. Now we're gonna get more attack after that. So now let's go find a random Rune Guard so we can bully. Now that we have 2 Pyro elements on our team, and of course Bennette as well. So let's get this guy's attention. He's gonna try to shoot his rockets. We're gonna say hell no. We're gonna say get wrecked. We're gonna switch to Bennette. He already has a Pyro element on top of him. We're gonna cast it, and if you notice, my attack increased from 2900 to 3180. So wait a little bit. We just gotta wait one more second, and then we can pop the bubble. And we get a critical hit of 207,000. So it went up by, compared to the 191,000, it went up about 16,000 more, just for having another Pyro character on your team. So now let's just say you didn't have Bennette, but you had, Zhongling, of course. Let's see how much damage you can get with just a double Pyro character on your team with that attack boost. So once again, we use our little test subject Rune Guard. Wait for him to wake up. He gets wrecked as soon as he wakes up. Pyro elements on him. We use Mona's burst. Wait a couple seconds, because our attack went up from 2000 whatever it was to 2282. Then we use Zhongling, Goba, and that is a nice 143 crit. So just a little step up from the one we had earlier. So now let's get into something that you will have access to. Of course, everyone has the main character. And if you choose the Anemo version of main character, you can get him a 4-piece Viridescence set. And this is the key, most important thing that you have to pay attention about this artifact set. Whenever he causes a swirl, it decreases the opponent's elemental resistance to the element infused by the swirl. So what that means is we're gonna make the enemy wet, we're gonna cause a swirl, and for 10 seconds, the enemy's resistance to hydro damage is gonna be decreased by 40, which will help us get more damage with our elemental burst. And also, one thing that I'm gonna throw in right now is everyone has access to this 3-star catalyst. So it says when switching to a new character, the new character gets an additional 48% attack boost. Alright, so right now, our Mona, of course, that's 2042. So now let's see if we can apply that to the Ruin Guard. So once again, now that we have access to Bennette, who has a faster Pyro attack, we can actually do this Vaporize setup, and then also use his burst to see what kind of potential you guys can have if you have this team comp. Because remember, we gotta get within that 10 seconds of that swirl. So we'll make him. Oh. Yeah, actually, now he's wet. Cause a swirl. Push to Lisa. Push to Mona, get the attack boost. Bennette's ultimate. And a burst from Mona. So we gained an attack all the way up to 3400, which is a pretty significant amount. Once again, everything else stay the same. And if we get that 47% crit hit, then we should see a big damage. So let's see, wait a couple seconds, and then hit him, and then we got 281,000. Just with that setup alone. Just pretty good. So how do we make this better? Well, if you have access to Sucrose, the thing about Sucrose is she is an animal character, which means she has access to Viridescent set. She's also a catalyst user, which means she has access to the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers. Also, another thing about Sucrose that you need to understand is her passive talents give so much value, because whenever she triggers a swirl, let's just say she triggers a Hydro Swirl, Mona's gonna get an extra 50 Elemental Mastery for 8 seconds. And along with doing the swirl at the same time, we're gonna be decreasing the opponent's elemental resistance by 40%. And also at the same time, we use her E to cause a swirl, which means that 20% of Sucrose's elemental mastery is going to be transferred into the whole party, which includes Mona. So what you want to make sure with Sucrose is that you have a lot of elemental mastery as possible. She's basically a 3-in-1, a 4-in-1. She decreases the elemental resistance, she gives you elemental mastery from both talents, and then when you switch off of her to Mona, then you get an attack boost from the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers. So what that means is you replace the animal main character with Sucrose.
I want to help.
Now you don't need Lisa for the book, and so what that means is you can actually add another Pyro character.
Leave it to me.
Which gives us access to that 25% of the Fervent Flames. And so now if we do the setup again, let's see how much damage we're gonna get. So now let's put everything that can boost our attack into one single setup. Now it doesn't have to be Amber, it can be any Pyro character. I just like using Amber. So we're gonna get this guy wet. We're gonna apply Sucrose's E to decrease his hydro resistance. We're gonna make him wet. This is the easiest boss to make wet. Now he's wet. Cause Sucrose a swirl. Switch to Mona. Switch to Bennette. And then do the little combo real quick. Cause the Vaporize. Our attack is now 3,640. Our Vaporize went from 55% to 71.7%. And now we'll wait for the Icy cooldown. And if we did it right, if we got a critical hit, we should see a lot of damage like that. 322,000 damage. And that's it. That's the perfect setup. So I just showed you how to do a basic burst all the way to a better setup to maximize the potential of your burst. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Feel free to check me out on Facebook. I do stream daily. We're all about Mona. Definitely give her the attention she deserves. And we do that 300+ K damage on the daily. I assure you that. Like and subscribe for more Mona content because it is definitely coming. I'm definitely coming in more to my YouTube channel. So stick around for that. I appreciate y'all. Thanks so much. I love y'all. And we'll see you in the next video.